This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of The Edge. I'm your host, Amy Nelson, and I've brought back, by popular demand, Brandi Jackola and Heather Barker. Brandi, welcome to The Edge again.
Well, thank you very much. I am very happy to be here, Amy. Thank you.
Are you missing live from The Edge?
I am. It will become more difficult as the months go on, because right now it's still kind of fresh. But in another month or so, I'm just going to be like an addict looking for a fix.
Yes. Where's Discovery? Where?
Yep.
And Heather, how are you doing?
I am doing pretty well. I'm excited to be back with the two of you because this is just very meaningful when we get together and talk about Discovery and talk about our lives. So I've been looking forward to it for a long time and watching some Discovery to try and prepare to. I wanted to make it through the whole season, but I haven't even made it through half of the season.
Right. I know. Yes.
But life happens.
Yeah, it does. But I tell you, I'm enjoying every minute, especially now knowing how the whole season turned out. Going back and watching with that knowledge is a different experience, and it's very enjoyable.
Very good. Well, listeners, you have guessed, we are here to talk about themes in Star Trek, specifically Discovery, but not just themes, but how they relate to our personal lives. I mean, that's what makes Star Trek great. And we all three agree is that we can relate to it on an emotional and a mental level. So we've come up with some really great themes, different themes than we've talked about. So there's just so many. I'm telling you, we could do a lot here. So let's start with our first topic, and that's Caught Between Two Worlds. And I have to give credit to Stage 9 for this topic. I was listening to their season 2 wrap up, and they totally got me thinking about this theme. They were talking about Ash Vogue, and obviously how he is caught between two worlds. But it got me thinking and how it really applies to a lot of the characters that we know. We have Burnham, who's human, but raised Vulcan. We have Lorca, who is Mir, but living in the Prime. Saru is Kelpian, but an officer in Starfleet, being the first Kelpian. And Stamets, who is a scientist, but on a warship. So I thought that with that showing up with so many characters, I'm very interested to know, ladies, have you been caught between two worlds yourself? Are you currently caught? Like, how do you feel? And how did you reconcile your life with this split? Heather, let's start with you.
This is my life, basically. And I joke, I'm not a big astrology person, but I'm in Gemini. So the whole concept of duality and being caught between two worlds has followed me throughout my life.
I'm going to say I am also a Gemini.
So yeah, you're familiar with it. And, it's an interesting concept to explore. And I think that it applies to pretty much everyone, regardless of what your astrological sign is. I think that we all at some point in our lives experience being pulled in two directions. And it's, for me, it's just like the story of my life. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And it's been interesting because we've talked before about my life situation, and it's been a while since we've done one of these. So short version, when Discovery came on, I was living in a house that I had just built with my fiance. And that was an interesting experience in and of itself, because here I was loving Discovery and he was a Norville person. So that was interesting. And then my life took a very unexpected turn, and I had to leave my home for my own personal safety. He had ended our relationship, and then, I don't know, went nuts. And then we took a break. Like, it's funny how this all happened, like during the break of Discovery, that I had to move into an apartment. And fortunately, like, for the most part, things have gotten a lot better for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm mostly safe and in a good spot. But it's been interesting because I've watched this whole season of Discovery, and I've watched my life go from a dark place and end up in a really positive place in the end. And I'll spare all the super personal details for now, I guess. But it's Discovery's become something extra special for me because it's been in the background of my life while all this turmoil has happened. And it became something that, doing my own Star Trek podcast on a different network, it's the socialization, having something to do. Like, it's kept me sane, mm-hmm. And grounded, and Discovery's, the optimism that is within Discovery. I've found it. Like, I've made a point to find it and to hold on to it, and bring me through all of this. So, it's hard to put into words, is what I'm finding. Explaining the depth of how Discovery has been there for me and kept me going through all of this, and will continue to keep me going through it. It was not fun to be in a very scary place, and it's still kind of a scary place, but it's getting better. And I'm glad for that. And that may not be like the perfect answer to this question, but it's, like I said, it's hard to put into words. But I was stuck in a very bad place and in a bad relationship that I shouldn't have stayed in. And thankfully, the universe stepped in and kind of pushed me out of it. And now I'm on my own, and life is getting a lot better. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a perfect answer because it relates to you. Okay. There's no wrong answers here.
It's tough. It's tough. And I hope that in time I'll be able to better articulate the depth of which Discovery and the Star Trek community has affected my life. I still have a way to go to get out of this. And I feel like once I do, it'll get better. And maybe I'll have more cohesive answers down the road.
Well, Heather, thank you for sharing. Brandi, tell us if you've been caught between two worlds and what you have done.
I'm constantly caught between two worlds because I am an introvert living in an extroverted world. And I just want to stop here for a second and say Discovery and Orville are not mutually exclusive loves. I love both of them. I don't know why people want to argue over which one is better. Just love them both. Anyway, I kind of feel like everybody in the world is caught between two worlds because they're caught between what they want to do with their lives and what other people expect of them. So, but in my case, it's a daily battle because most people just think that being extroverted is the norm. And they don't realize that half the population is not that way. And the biggest example I can give of people who don't understand what the difference is. Extroverted people get their energy from being around other people and being in social situations and big crowds and talking and partying. Whereas introverts get their energy from being alone and having solace and recharge time. They are drained by being in large groups of people. And never is that more apparent than when I am at a Comic-Con. That is the biggest challenge because it's a wonderful experience, but at the same time, I just feel sometimes like, okay, we need to find a quiet room now. But basically, that's something that's unfortunately never going to change. Mm-hmm. I am who I am, and the world is what it is. And I can't make the whole world be the way that I need it to be. So I make my world what I need it to be. And I have one day a week, usually Sundays, that I don't do anything that I don't want to do. I stay home for the most part. Every once in a while, there's a situation where, I connect with a friend and we go out. Doesn't happen as often since my best friend moved to Oregon, but
oh darn.
Yeah, I miss her a lot. But basically, I just do things where I don't have to think about everything else that's going on in the world, because the kind of person that I am, I absorb and internalize all of that noise. And then I have to get rid of it at some point. And I can't do that when I'm still out in the world absorbing and internalizing all that noise. So I just spend time alone. And my husband is very much the same way. So Sundays he's in one room, I'm in the other room. We're doing our things, and we both recharge so that we can face the world again on Monday.
That is very true. I too get that way. I'm an introvert as well. And I need to have the me time.
Yes.
That's what recharges me. And
yes.
Yes.
Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. People seem to put negative associations with introverted behavior, like, oh, you're too shy. Or, I can't even remember all of the times when I was growing up where teachers would tell my parents, oh, she's too shy. She needs to come out of her shell, all of that. Actually, no, I don't. Thank you very much. This is how I'm hardwired, and people just need to accept that. Mm-hmm. Because it's not like I wasn't participating. I was absorbing everything going on around me. I just didn't feel the need to regurgitate it upon everybody else.
I think that a lot of Star Trek fans are introverts. And a lot of people, that was a big reason that Spock was so attractive to so many. Because being an introvert, we often feel like we're an other of some sort, and just being wonderful geeks by nature. And there's always been a character like Spock in Star Trek for us to identify with, and definitely resonates with me because I'm the same way. I am my most social for the 1 week I'm at the Las Vegas Star Trek convention. Then I need a month to myself. Like, seriously, I don't talk to people for a month.
Yep. I totally get that.
Yeah, I too was saying, just thinking that same thing. Cause like when I'm at Star Trek Las Vegas, I must come out of my shell for this 1 week. Well, 2, since I live here and everyone comes in early, so I get to see people. But, I look back on the first 2 years that I went, and boy, I just stuck to myself. I was just, I was just observing everyone. I was watching, doing my thing. Don't talk to me. Just let me, and so then once I got the lay of the land and, getting more involved with Facebook and, friends in the community, now I'm pretty social butterfly when Star Trek Las Vegas happens, and I love it. But yeah, I need that time afterwards okay, let's recharge. It's so good to see people, but to have that time to myself, and just reflect and think about that. I really identified with Burnham when she was attending the disco party in Magic to make the sanest man go man.
Oh, yeah.
Like I look at Burnham and she's so confident. Like as an officer, she's unparalleled. Like she's the best, and she's a good officer. She knows what she's doing. She knows her subject. And, even after she's declared this mutineer, she knows her stuff. She, Lorca depends on her. The crew learns to depend on her. And she has that confidence. And I feel that same way with her. Like in my career, like I'm a good teacher and I have that confidence and I can go into a classroom and it doesn't even have to be my classroom. I can go into any classroom and just sort of command the respect of all the students there because I can own it. Like I own the room. You know what I mean? And so then I think, man, why do I have this level of confidence? And then when I go into a social situation, just like Burnham, like I'm the wallflower, I'm, hanging back and I'm like, where's that confidence? Cause I know I'm a confident person in different areas, And I just think, man, that's a lot to improve on. And as I was thinking about this and, for my research, I was like, you know what? It's just a skill. Because when I think about how I became a confident teacher, like I know my craft, I continually learn, I talk to others and, try and get teaching strategies and do, research and reading and going to conferences. Like I do all of this stuff. And that's building my skill as a teacher. And I just have never, I guess, built my skill in that social arena. And so now being 44, I have some girlfriends that I go out and, out to get happy hour or whatever. And I'm watching and I'm learning and like, how are they talking to people? How are they not, picking up guys, but, just interacting, I've given my numbers out a couple of times, and so it's like, I'm treating it as like building this skill to overcome this duality that has been with me my entire life, going from professional to social. It's hard.
It is hard.
It was really interesting. In high school, I excelled in English, and I had a teacher who was teaching both like AP English and then math. And guess who's terrible at math?
Uh-oh.
It was just really interesting for her because she even commented to me like watching a student excel in one subject and then do so poorly. Like I think I got a D at one point in geometry. Like it was bad. I just struggled with those concepts, but that's where I think like this concept of duality plays in with so many of us because like I'm a business owner. So when I go meet new clients, I've been doing this for almost 11 years. So I know that I'm good at what I do. I know that I'm knowledgeable about it. I feel very, very confident. But then if you put me in a different situation, like if I'm learning something like a new skill, or a new sport or something, especially sports, because I'm not always coordinated. And I just become extremely self-conscious. So, I feel like that would resonate with a lot of people, where you're good at one thing and not quite good at the other. But again, it is about learning the skills and building up that confidence. And I think too that podcasting is great for all of us because even though we're podcasting from our lovely homes, we still get to see each other's faces and talk. And I know all of us are active in doing podcasting and whatnot. So I think that this is a good start for all of us.
It is. Yeah. And building the relationships sort of on a smaller scale so that when we do transfer to Comic-Cons and STLV, that we can be successful.
Yes.
Yeah. I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Heather.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioning that scene in Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. When that scene happened, I pointed to the screen and I said to my husband, that is me in every party ever.
Yes.
It's just, I love it. And I think that, Burnham, given who she is and given that she's human, but raised by Vulcans, and she obviously struggles with logic and emotion. And we talked about that before. That's a big part of her own duality. And just throughout the season, that really she's been the hallmark of this struggle. And I think that's why she resonates so much. And there's been a discussion about like, oh, is Saru the Spock? Like, who's the Spock character?
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end of the day, it's really Burnham. But again, just like you said when we started, Amy, that you really see the duality in everyone. Even Stamets, like watching us meet him, and he's, grumpy, suspicious. Who are you? And, I'm not here because I want to be. And by the end of this show, he's, basically risking his life for Discovery and for everybody on it. So it's a really neat theme. And I think that we could talk for 2 hours on that one theme.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, before we move on, because I was thinking about like how difficult it is, living this life of duality. And I think of Lorca and how his whole life is mirror universe and how he's had to basically fake it till you make it, and he's had to learn these skills on what it's like to be in the prime universe, even though his every instinct is mirror universe, and so to, like you were saying, Brandi, like we live in this extroverted world of having to deal with people on a daily basis. And when you're not that way, how difficult it is and can be, but not always, and so just your true nature versus living in this world and learning how to get around in it and be successful. And because Lorca was very successful in the prime,
Very.
Can I share one last thing?
Please.
Because it just came to mind. Because thinking about living in a situation you're not used to, and even thinking about Saru a little bit, like in my personal situation now, like, yes, I'm in a place where technically I'm safe because I'm on my own, but I'm going through the process now of like, I own the house with my ex-fiance. And so he's like holding the house hostage. And every day, like the amount of anxiety and fear that I've developed from this situation, is overwhelming. And I've never in my life felt this much fear or anxiety, despite things that I've talked about in the other podcasts. And it has been an exercise in duality, because just the other day I said to someone, like, there are days when I feel empowered, like I'm going to go to court. I'm going to do, I probably shouldn't say this all in podcasts, but like, I know what my plan of action is. Mm-hmm. And I feel confident that I'm going to do this so that I can, save my credit at the end of the day. And then there are other days where something bizarre happens, like he shows up in my apartment and leaves a bunch of mail in the foyer, and I'm terrified. So it's like I feel empowered one day and powerless the next day. And so it makes me think a lot of Saru. I'm trying to be like Saru and remember that at the end of the day, Saru turns into this powerful, well, we say powerful, this commanding captain to be, maybe acting captain. But it's just that struggle of duality is there all the time, in so many aspects of our lives and in Discovery.
All right. Well, another topic that actually one of the listeners brought to the attention, and I think it was Nicholas Paul Collinson, and he was talking about the mycelium network. And he was saying like how in the prime universe, it's alive and well. But then when we go to the mirror universe, that mycelium network is dying. And how interesting, and we can draw that parallelism to conservation, where both universes are using the network to their advantage. However, in the mirror universe, they exhaust it and kill it and take it to its extinction. Whereas the prime universe, they're trying to save it and, not exhaust it, and try to preserve it so that they can use it in the future. So I wanted to see what you guys were thinking about this idea of conservation. Brandi?
Oh, there are so many directions I could have gone on this one, but I thought about the one thing that just really bothers me on a daily basis, and it's how much food we waste, not just in this country, but in the world, because of certain laws that prevent leftover food from being given to anyone, etc. Because, it could, they could become sick and then they'll sue us. Well, there are ways around things like that, because dumping 1 million pounds of food, perfectly good food, into a garbage dump every day is not okay. It's just not.
And then having it be illegal for people to go in the dumpsters to get it.
Yes. I don't understand that part of the world, because there is obviously enough for everybody. But we are not using the resources properly. And we're so entitled in this country. We can just go down to the market and grab whatever we need. Well, it's not that way for everybody. There are people, I know that there are people in my own town who don't have enough to eat. There are millions of people in this country alone that don't have enough to eat on a daily basis. And so I do my best to not waste food ever. It's one of those things where it's like, if I don't know for sure if I'm ever going to eat this, then I'm not going to buy it because I refuse to throw anything away when it comes to food. And if more people started doing that, it would start to make a difference. The biggest offenders, though, are like chain grocery stores and restaurants. They produce the bulk of wasted food. And I see that happening, and I'm like, there are people who are literally dying that could be eating that. Why are we doing this? Something needs to change, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how to fix that problem because, unfortunately, the government is in control of that. And I'm not saying government is bad. I'm just saying that there should be a better way than this. Because,
and I think, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Well, and I think as a society, we're so conditioned to pick out the perfect apple, the perfectly shaped potato, and if something looks a little weird, then we're not going to buy it. The grocery stores aren't going to put it out. So all those odd shapen fruits and vegetables or what have you, they're not going to be put out. And so what do the farmers do with them? They throw them away. A perfectly good potato, or, just because we're conditioned that, an apple needs to look like this. A pear needs to look like this, Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is it doesn't change the way it tastes.
Right.
And it's ridiculous. And it makes me angry. It makes me angry that this is happening. And there's no point to it, because eventually it's already happening now. Ground is becoming fallow. Crops aren't growing. Bees are dying. All of these things that have this delicate balance in our ecosystem are changing, and we're doing not enough to stop it. And even without any kind of interference by man-made weapons or anything else, we could destroy this planet just that way. And it's frightening and angering. Stop it. I wish I had like a firm concrete plan of what we could all pull together and do. And I don't. And I'm sorry about that. I'm not the best idea person, but there's got to be a better way. There just has to be, because we're going to be killing ourselves if this kind of waste continues.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people just don't consider that, because we're not going to, we're not going anywhere. The three of us and the people living right now, it's children and our future.
Our future.
And that's not a real concern for a lot of people. And so it's always frustrating to see, government regulations put forward that help the environment, and then to have those turn around and be completely undone. And that's just a cycle that goes back and forth, along with, at least here in America, our politics. And one of the things when it comes down to food, specifically in like restaurants, is portion size. I mean, that's such a large reason as to why that food is wasted, because we're getting gigantic portions of food. Go to Europe. Like you're not going to get food, sizing like that. And it's frustrating because, again, it's that in and of itself, this issue of trash, and what we throw away is a big deal. And a lot of that happens in this country specifically, which is a struggle. And I know that there are people out there fighting the good fight. There are groceries that are giving their leftover produce and other expired type things to homeless shelters and stuff like that. And it's just, I know it's being done. It just needs to be done on such a large scale. And sadly, I think that right now, at least, a lot of government decisions are going in the wrong direction to save the planet. But I mean, the ozone is better.
Well, what's the ozone going to protect if we can't grow crops anymore?
I agree. It's
very short-sighted.
My understanding is that there are things we can do to save this planet. I know that a lot of people, especially in the Star Trek community, where we're so focused on space exploration, feel that, eventually Earth is just going to die. And that may be what happens, but there are ways that we can save it now. And so I think it just really comes down to education. But food is a great place to start.
Yeah, I am very hopeful because, dealing with kids every day, they are learning, and it just seems to be in their DNA, it seems, that I see. At my school, we have a program, environmental sciences, and part of the strand that goes with that is greenhouse environment. And so we have this amazing teacher who does the greenhouse, and he now is growing enough food that we have a set fresh salad bar for our kids' lunchroom, and they serve about 60 salads a day, just completely from what is grown in our own greenhouse. Like that to me is amazing. And the kids are eating, and, we can go and, he'll say like, here we have some heirloom tomatoes, and they're all misshapen and different colored. And, but it's like, it was grown at our school. And I think the kids are learning to see more of these misshapen, oh, this is a weird fingerling potato, type of thing. And I think they're becoming more comfortable with the idea of homegrown food, which I think is a really good shift from this culture of eating perfect food all the time. So I'm really happy to see that at our school, and our teacher, he does really good, and he does the recycling program at our school, and the kids are getting on board with it.
I like it. Well, if they don't like the future we've left for them, they're the ones that have to change it, because obviously we're not going to. I think we've proved that up to this point. So not us specifically, but as a generation.
Yeah.
This is a depressing subject.
Well, I was thinking about this, and living in a desert here in Las Vegas for the past 11 years has really opened my eyes about water conservation, and seeing poor Lake Mead just keeps going lower and lower if you've seen it. But the Las Vegas Water District, they have commercials on how well Nevada, specifically Southern Nevada, has done to conserve water. And something that California really needs to follow our examples. And Southern Nevada actually has been an example for other cities across the nation. The largest community scale that I can think of is they had this thing called Cash for Grass. And the Southern Nevada Water Authority actually would give incentives, and I think it was $1.50 for every square foot of grass that you turned over your lawn into desert landscaping. So plants that are obviously indigenous to this area and don't require a lot of water, cactuses and stuff like that. And that has really changed when you drive down the street. Like, we don't have these gorgeous, lush green lawns anymore. And when I first moved here, almost every house had lawn, and it just doesn't even make sense to have lawn in a desert. And so that, I think, has really changed the perception of what a beautiful home looks like, you know, because you're just so used to seeing grass everywhere. So I think that's like the largest one. They also have put, Las Vegas has tons of golf courses. And so they put the golf courses on a diet. And so if it's not specifically on the green, then they converted those grassy areas to the desert landscaping. They also do recycled water, where they clean the water and then put it back in Lake Mead. And just last year, they recycled 65 million gallons of water. And they restrict if you can empty and refill your pool every year. And then I know it's been done, I know in Utah for sure, but we also have a sprinkler restrictions. So you're only doing your watering 2 times a week and at specific times of the day. And the drip sprinklers that's where everyone's doing, is this drip and not the sprinkle the water, because then we're so hot here that sprinkling water just evaporates. So it doesn't even get to your grass. So the drip systems has really been pushed. And I think it really has changed Southern Nevada and how we use our water. And just as a good note, Southern Nevada has decreased its water usage by 23%, despite the fact that there's 500,000 new residents since 2002. So even with more people coming in, we are decreasing and, you know, reserving this water because we do live in a desert. And I just think that's so great. And I've heard and I see it, you know, this transformation that Southern Nevada has done this past 11 years.
That is impressive.
So that's something positive.
We have a lot of similar, like the watering restrictions here in Colorado. And I want to say that we did, you know, in Florida, you get a lot of rain. So, but still people water their lawns every day because it's also hot. But here we have the same water restrictions. Xeriscaping is also getting more and more popular here. But we have a lot of still suburban areas that just have grass everywhere. And it's great, but like xeriscaping can be so beautiful.
It really is.
It's tough. Like I get that, you know, having grass and a grassy lawn is fun, especially if you have kids and stuff like that. But at least a lot of people now will xeriscape the front lawn and then just have some kind of lawn in the back with grass. But I struggled with this one because even right now, living in my apartment, I've been recycling pretty much my entire life since I was 9, and I'll be 37 soon. So when I moved to South Florida, they were recycling in 1990, and recycling just became a part of my life. And I was really discouraged to find in my apartment complex, which has 2 large buildings, there is 1 recycling bin. 1 bin. And so I have to like walk down into the parking garage at the end of the parking garage to take it. And it's always full, which is great. But I wonder how many people are discouraged from recycling because we only have 1 bin in an area that not everybody uses. It's a difficult thing. I know that in the larger picture, it's difficult to see the impact of 1 person, but I do my best to do things like recycle. I'm toying with the idea of going 50% vegetarian. I mean, I'm already sort of there already. But a lot of the damage that we do to our environment comes from mass production of meat and stuff like that. And look, I love bacon. So it's really hard for me because it's not just the environmental effects, but even being someone in the animal care industry and who loves animals so much, I've been asked many times, like, how do you justify eating animals when they're, these wonderful and intelligent creatures? And I'm like, but they're food. Like, we've eaten animals for a long, long time. But that's one thing that I try to do sometimes, is to just eat a plant-based diet versus a meat diet. I don't know that I can ever go like fully vegetarian. I know many, many people that do, and that's a great thing to do. I certainly encourage people to get on Netflix, get on the internet, and learn a little bit about how food production affects the environment. Because even with bees, I just watched a documentary on bees last night, and it was talking about how like honey farmers, bee farmers can't even make money selling honey anymore. So right now it's the almond milk industry. Mm-hmm. Like, especially in California, they're sending their bees to help pollinate these almond tree orchards, and to try to help save the bees and give the bees something to do. It's scary stuff. So I think that the best thing that we can do is educate ourselves and continue to encourage others and educate our children. And it may seem discouraging. Like I said, it's a depressing topic to think about in the long run, because we don't know where we're going to be in 1,000 years, or where society is going to be. We don't know. And really the best we can do is just continue to fight the good fight, and do what we can as individuals. We are the needs of the many. And so as individuals, we can work towards that. And so I do the best I can, with the knowledge that I can, and go from there, I guess.
Well, another topic that came up from Discovery, which I found very interesting, is fate versus self-destiny. And we hear Lorca explain to Michael that her fate was to be with him in either universe and to overthrow the Emperor. And it wasn't just luck that caused her to kill Tukuvma and start the Klingon War. It was fate. And just like it was fate when he rescued her from going to prison, and, he was captain of the Discovery to make sure he could do that. And, he just goes on and on about this fate. However, Michael is quite sure to set him straight and lets him know, no, she controls her own destiny. She makes her own choices and deals with the consequences that follow. And I feel that this is a far-reaching theme that we see in all of Star Trek, but it's definitely called out between Lorca and Michael Burnham in The War Without, The War Within. So talk to me, Heather, about your fate versus self-destiny.
It's a funny thing. Especially right now, whenever there's turmoil in my life, my mantra is that the universe takes care of you. Like, anytime I have been in a situation that's been really scary, just like this one, somehow all of the pieces have fallen into place. Like, I was packing up my house, so when I had to move, like, suddenly, pretty much everything was packed. And I was somehow able to raise enough money to help cover all of my expenses to get me into my apartment. I don't know what it is. I guess it's an assurance. Like, when you feel like you don't have control, it's really easy to turn around and say something like the universe takes care of you, or, oh, karma's going to take care of that person. But at the end of the day, I don't really believe in that kind of stuff. Like, I determine my future. I got myself to where I am in life through the good and the bad. And so, like, I am learning my lessons from this experience that I've had, and I am taking the steps that I need to take to get myself in a better place. But again, when you don't feel that control and you need some hope, I think it's really easy to turn around and think, oh, it was meant to be. It all happened for a reason. Did it? It's tough. I try to remind myself that the universe takes care of me so that it will keep me centered and keep me going. But at the end of the day, I know that it's what I do and the steps I take that are going to determine my future. And if at any time in your life you don't like the situation you're in, you can change it. And I know that it's really hard. Like it's not snap of a finger or twitch of a nose to change things. But I think that's something that we all struggle with. And, I know for myself, like I was in a relationship I really should not have been in. And whether I had resigned myself to, oh, well, this is what it is, and we're happy sometimes, and this is my last shot, I'm getting old, whatever way I rationalized it, I should have taken control. Like I should have got myself out of that. And again, here I am like, oh, well, the universe did it for me. No, like someone else just made a decision in their life that affected mine in this way. But one of the things I've come out of this, there's that quote that like everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And just because fear prevents us from doing a lot. And I don't know what held me back from making decisions that would have bettered my life and kept me out of the situation I'm in, because I knew that it was bad. And this applies to another theme that we're going to talk about even. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we are the ones who determine our fate, and we are the ones who can change our own lives. And that's a difficult thing to do, but you can do it. And I want everybody to repeat that right now. Like seriously, anyone out there who is in a bad spot in your life, even though it is hard and you may have to take baby steps, like you can do it. You can change your life and you can get yourself to a better place.
Agreed. Brandi?
Yeah, this is so corny, but the first thing that I thought of was Terminator 2 and Sarah Connor's teaching her son, there's no fate but what we make. Unfortunately, that entire movie series has proven that that is not true in that universe. Because no matter what they do, everything still goes to hell in a handbasket. So, but I think that the sentiment is valid. Because thinking that something controls your destiny absolves you of responsibility. And we all need to take responsibility for ourselves. Now, fate and destiny are kind of similar things, but destiny seems to be a little more, kinder, because there are people that I know that they are doing what they were meant to do with their lives. They figured that out early. And it wasn't because they were born with some innate talent or whatever. They found something they liked. They continued to do it. They got better and better and better. My friend Chris is an example. He is an artist. That is his living. And he makes enough at that living that he and his wife, his wife works, but he and his wife, they have their own place, they're comfortable. They're not constantly worrying about, what massive bill might be around the corner. The insurance situation, not the best, because insurance in this country is weird. But he figured out very early on, this is what I love. This is what I'm going to do. And he did it. Now, was that destiny? Not necessarily. Was that fate? Absolutely not. Because he made those choices to continue doing that thing that he loved. I wish I could figure out what that thing is for me. I am 44 years old and I have not figured it out. And I don't know if I ever will. But part of me is okay with that. Part of me is just like, so what? So what? I'm living the life that I want to live, regardless if I feel some sort of calling. Not everybody gets that. Not everybody finds that. And I accept that about myself. So in my particular opinion, there is no fate but what we make. We have total control over what we do with our lives. And sadly, that can't necessarily be said for everyone on this planet because of circumstances they're born into or what have you. But we are very lucky that we can say that. And So if somebody tells me, oh, no, you're meant to do this, I'm just like, oh, hold on. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
No, I will decide what I am meant to do. Thank you very much. I'm very stubborn where that sort of thing comes in. So, and it's one of those things, living up to other people's expectations. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I could go into a whole diatribe about religion, but I'm not going to go there. But all I can say is that I know that my path is the right one because I'm happy. And that's all there is to it.
And you make your happiness.
Exactly. I create my happiness.
Yeah. Well, I too, very similar. I've always thought, and I won't go into religion either. So I was born and raised.
We're like twins, Amy.
I know. But I've always felt like you are in charge of your life, no matter what. Even though I was raised to believe in a God and, and this whole idea of universe, like I've heard it and I've just always in the back of my mind, like that just doesn't gel with what I believe. But in thinking about this, it was in Next Generation Cause and Effect. And I love that episode. It's the time loop one. And Beverly Crusher in every loop breaks that darn little glass. And that gets me thinking like, okay, here's a loop. It breaks. Okay, next one, it breaks again. And she's remembering this deja vu. And she specifically moves the glass and yet again, it breaks. And I'm like, was that glass meant to be broken? And it just gets me thinking, like, are there things that are meant to be? And when I think about it, also Metatrex, if you haven't listened to Metatrex number 2, it's called Picard in Blue, has a great episode that talks about free will and compatibilism. They say it better. But it's this whole idea of, is your free will or is it just destined to be? Is it fate? And I think about that when I think about my chosen profession. And I think, was I meant to be a teacher? Because like you were saying, Brandi, like I have found that and if I was raised in another time period or a different country, different circumstances, would I be a teacher? And I really feel like I would be. I mean, I just love what I do. So then that gets me thinking, is it fate that I am a teacher? Because it's so weird to think about it. I can just do these loops in my mind because I know the actions that I take, they're my actions. And I know that I'm responsible for it. But yet, is it fate that I was meant to be a teacher? That's the only one part of the area where I almost believe in fate.
I could totally deconstruct that right now, but it would take us another hour. Because if you were to really think about it and think about every decision in your life that made you arrive at becoming a teacher, and if you changed any one of those small circumstances, it actually could have been a completely different life for you. Which is why when they're doing the time loop thing, that's a very finite, small amount of time in which things can tend to repeat themselves. But what I'm thinking of is in more of a quantum reality where you make one decision and you split off down this road. But if you had made this decision, you would have continued forward on this road and probably ended up in a completely different place. But there are so many other situations where you made a decision that led to you being a teacher. I'm just saying that it's not a fate thing so much as you made decisions for yourself and what you liked that put you in the place that you desired to be. So you made your fate, right. Amy. You made it.
There's I've always been drawn to the metaphysical, and I was forced to go to church when I was little. I had never liked church. I never identified with the concept of God. However, I recognize and appreciate communities where there is a strong presence, because what I find a lot of times is these are just very strong communities that are bound by love, and that are positive and supportive. And so may have ideas on what I think about religion in and of itself and negative aspects, but I think that it has many positive aspects too. But yeah, I just think that, like, for me, I've always been a spiritual person. I've studied a lot of different religions, and I just always come back to the idea of something like karma. And even now, like, there's no guarantee that my ex-fiance is going to wind up punished in life because of these decisions he has made. I have made mistakes, and is this a consequence? Like, am I going through this now because this is my karma for something I did in the past? Like, I have asked myself these questions, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, no, this is just life, and good and bad things happen in life. And I just try to go back to that good old Star Trek optimism and think that at the end of the day, I get to determine what happens here. Like, even in the worst case scenario happens, I will still be okay at the end of it. So, and I vacillate because, like, there's one thing I can let the house foreclose and take the hit on my credit. Or I can try to force the sale of the house. And even though it may still damage my credit at the end of the day because I can't pay for the house until all that happens, at least I won't have a foreclosure on my record. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can, even by being inactive and letting the house foreclose, that's still taking an action, basically.
Absolutely.
But I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the best thing to do for me instead of just like what he's doing, which is just forgetting that it ever happened, I guess. It's tough, but this has really taught me that, like, you just have to take those baby steps and get yourself through it. And yeah, it's comforting to think, oh, well, his karma is coming, or the universe takes care of me. But I could tell you, like, I still have crazy anxiety, regardless of how well everything has fallen into place for me and how well my life is now. Like, I mean, I have a great community of Star Trek people behind me. My podcasting career, in quotation, we don't get paid, so I don't know if it's a career. But that's doing exceptionally well. I've met a really great man. There's so much good in my life. I still have the anxiety of what is going to happen. Is my whole world still going to come crashing down? Like, it's a struggle. Again, it falls into that duality thing, doesn't it? Because you're like, does it all work out? Is it all meant to be? Did it all happen for a reason or else? Like, does every decision you make determine your own personal destiny? Mm-hmm. It's a fun topic.
It is. It is. Well, Heather, you wanted to discuss the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. So why don't you get us going on that?
Okay. So the needs of the many versus the needs of the few is a classic theme in Star Trek. I mean, this came from the very beginning of Star Trek. And I think that it continues in Discovery, even from the very beginning when Michael Burnham decided to overtake Captain Georgiou in the Vulcan Hello. Ideally, she was wanting to prevent a war, but she confesses, like, she's really doing it to save the ship, to save her crew, to save Captain Georgiou. Like, that's where the focus is. And by the end of the season, she's preventing genocide. Like, she's taking the steps towards saving the needs of the many and not the needs of the few, although she still does save Georgiou. But I relate this in a very specific way, and I kind of foreshadowed this earlier. I am the kind of person that is always focused on the needs of the many. Like, I never put myself first. And I think that's part of, like, why I had stayed in that relationship. And I mean, this is just, a relationship of two people is not like saving the world or anything, but it just boils down to the fact that I tend to put the needs of others first, it it doesn't matter what it is. So I am trying now. I feel like I've learned my lesson, and now like I know that sometimes it's okay to put the needs of the one first. And I didn't go through, I mean, they've talked about this throughout Star Trek, because from time to time we do focus on saving the crew member when there are other lives at risk. But I think for the most part, that the Starfleet message and the Star Trek message is to look out for other people, and that the needs of the many do outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And it resonates with me because I'm that kind of person. But I think that there is a message that sometimes it's okay on a personal level, like what Themes is talking about our lives. It's okay to put yourself first, assuming you're not committing genocide or something like that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting subject, and it comes up. It came up in Discovery, and then I don't know if you guys have read any of the novels yet. Desperate Hours.
I've read them both.
Drastic Measures, and so Drastic Measures I just finished reading, and that talks about. Whopper. It's so good. It's so good. Highly recommend people read it. But it's basically about Kodos, Conscience of the King, the TOS episode where he killed half the people on the planet. And he was, even though he made a bad decision and committed genocide, like he thought that he was doing what was best for the many. And like, even then that was not what was best. Like genocide is never the answer. But it was interesting because that book kind of highlights that character and what he experienced and how he rationalized it, which I just thought was really interesting, that sometimes even when we think we're focused on the needs of the many, even that cannot be the right decision.
I agree, except I don't think in the end that it was about the needs of the many, because what did he do to continue living? What did he sacrifice? He sacrificed nothing of himself and everything of those around him. Mm-hmm. Spoilers! Sorry, guys. Oh my goodness. It's such a good book.
I just ordered the book, so all right.
Anyway, yeah, well, I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but
no, it's all good.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that I'm just like, no, you're a terrible person. You are a terrible person, and I will not see you as anything else. That was my standing on that.
It's funny though, because like when I went back and watched Conscience of the King, and then in Conscience of the King he's Caridian is the character's name, and there's a scene where he's like expressing the weight of all of this that he's carried with him and what we assume is remorse, and like I almost empathize, but like, still, you're right. I mean, this was ultimately a selfish act. But read the book.
Yes,
it's a good book.
It's a really good book,
and I don't think we really spoiled anything. It just goes into more character depth with that character.
So much Lorca,
and so much Lorca.
Prime Lorca.
Oh, okay.
It's great.
Anyway.
So, Amy, do you want to go next?
Okay. Well, I deal with this, I feel like, on a daily basis. Again, I'm so sorry I'm talking all about teaching, but it's such a huge part of my life.
No sorries. No sorries.
So right now, this time of season, like we're looking at, what courses are we going to teach for next year? And I think about, okay, so what courses should I teach? Where am I going to be the most valuable? Am I need to teach and prepare the kids for calculus, or do I need to help those lower level kids? It just, every year I'm going through, well, who do I want to help? What's going to get the needs of the many? Or even when I've like gone to different schools and moved states, I've taught in 3 different states, and, looking at what type of school do I want to be at, an at-risk school. And I love my at-risk kids. And now I'm at a career and technical academy, and it just, where's am I going to be the most useful? Where can I help the needs of the many? And when I started teaching, it took me a good 10, 12 years. Like, I was exhausting myself. I was always at school and always staying after to help tutor the kids, or to run the National Honor Society, or to do this club, or, and you just give. It's so easy as a teacher to just give and sacrifice yourself. And it was getting to a point where I was sacrificing my physical health, and, I was getting very overweight, and it just was not good. And I didn't have the energy, and I could just tell I was deteriorating, and sort of goes in line with that conservation. Like, I was not conserving my body. And so I just made the decision to have the year of Amy. That's what I called it. And I'm like, this is it. I need to put myself first, because the needs of the one needs to happen. Otherwise, I'm not going to be an effective teacher. And a wise friend told me, says, you can't share a piece of bread if you don't have a loaf yourself. I thought, man, that just makes perfect sense. I don't know why I never thought of it like that before. So I needed to get a loaf of bread. And, I hired a trainer and a nutritionist and made sure to put Amy first. And that was 3 years ago. And I can tell you, every year has been the year of Amy. It's been so awesome. And I'm like, why haven't I done this my whole life? I'm taking care of myself. I have appropriate boundaries with how much time I have at work and how much work I bring home versus how much time I devote to myself and replenishing myself and making sure I'm going to the gym and eating healthy. And I just think, gosh, why didn't I learn this so long ago? To take care of yourself, the needs of you is going to allow you to affect the needs of the many. And now every year, my 180 students, they get the best Miss Nelson possible because I am taking care of the needs of the one. And so I just think that is a very valuable lesson, that it really can. It doesn't have to be this or this situation. Like, when you take care of yourself, you are that much better and able to take care of others.
I think that this is something that affects us specifically as women too. And as women who we're very similar. I think all 3 of us are caregivers in our own way. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I've dealt with as well, especially as a business owner, because I'm just like, oh, you're going to cancel the day of, oh, don't worry about it. It's like, forget I've turned away all these clients. And it took someone else to be like, okay, you're working yourself to death. You need to be strict about you have rules in place for your business. Now you need to enforce those rules. Mm-hmm. And then again, here we come in with like the duality of being an assertive person versus a people pleaser, where I'm like, okay, I can be assertive in these areas of my life, but not owning a business. Like, come on, like that's the one place where you have to be the most assertive. Right. But I've been there too. And I just think that, a lot of times throughout history, women have been the caregiver in the home, the housekeeper back in the day. And we were conditioned to put others first. And a lot of times we're still conditioned to, tend to the emotional needs of your partner over your own. And it doesn't, of course, apply specifically to women, because I know a lot of men who are wonderful, giving, nurturing people that put themselves last as well. But I do wonder, just as women, how much has been conditioned, especially for at least you and I, Amy. We'll hear Brandi's story in a minute, but not learning these lessons until so much later in life. and having gone through life giving so much to others at the expense of our own health. And I was in a, similar situation, decided, you know what, I'm not healthy. I need to be healthier. And here we all are. But I'm really interested to hear what Brandi has to say.
Well, I had to think about this because there are situations in my life that would have fit the bill, but they were like one-time things that, happened on a certain day, and it just didn't really feel like how it should. The one thing that I will drop everything for right now is my mother, because she is about 3.5 weeks from turning 80, and she has AFib, and she got shingles a few weeks ago.
Oh.
And she wouldn't go to the doctor. She didn't go to the doctor for 5 days. Even though I told her on day 2, I said, Mom, it really looks like shingles. You really need to go to the doctor. Oh, I think it's just a rash. I'm like, Mom. And so finally, by the time the 5th day rolled around and her right eye it was on her face, by the way.
Oh, God.
And her left eye was so swollen, she couldn't see out of it. And she's practically blind in her right eye. And she had called me the night before and said that she was having trouble with her eye being swollen. She'd made an appointment with her doctor, and it was the next day. And I thought that night, I'm going to be prepared to leave work, because she is not going to be able to see to drive herself to that appointment. She calls me at 8 o'clock the next morning and says exactly that. And so I sent a message to my boss saying, hey, look, this is what's going on, and I've got to take care of her. And I basically left work at about 12:30, and I never got back there, because by the time I got her to the doctor, and the doctor's like, why didn't you come in sooner? This is so serious when it's on your face. And now you have to go see an eye doctor immediately, because they have to see if there are lesions on the eyes, and because it can blind you. And the skin on the face is so thin that if it gets in through your skin and into your brain, it can cause meningitis. Oh, he put the fear of God into her. And I'm grateful for that, because it needed to happen so that she would understand that this was a major problem. She's fine. She's fine. Just want everyone to know she's fine. But that's one of the things that I will put her before everything else. No matter what else is going on in my life, that's what will happen. But as far as a long-term thing that happened was last year at my job. For whatever reason, I couldn't explain it, because it certainly wasn't increased marketing or anything. My business, it's a very small business. We've grown since then, but there were 4 of us. And I'm the office manager. I'm the only one who does my job. And it got so busy that I literally could not get all of my work done in my allotted time. And I was working overtime for 12 straight weeks. Every day. I never left on time for 12 straight weeks. The later I leave, the worse the traffic, meaning my commute home, instead of being about 35 minutes, was now over an hour. Mm-hmm. I would get home, have dinner. Oh my gosh, it's half an hour until I need to go to bed and start all this over again. And I started to break down. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate thing is you can't hire someone in the middle of lawn season, because I work for a lawn fertilization company. I don't have time to train somebody else at that time of year. It's all I can do to just keep up with all the phone calls. Right. And so after things started to settle down, which wasn't until October. Oh, yeah. And I told my boss, don't think that this gets you out of letting me go to Comic-Con, because it doesn't. Comic-Con happens regardless. I've already got the tickets. You can't stop me. It's the one time I ask for time off, the one time of the year. But I was crying all the time, and I wasn't a happy person. Weekends were better because I had that time to recharge. But after the season calmed down, I said to my boss, I cannot do this next year. I have to have help. And he, my boss is a great guy, and he views us all like a family. And he said, whatever you need, we will get it done. And so this year we hired a minion for me. And I'm going to be able to train her before it gets really crazy busy. And I will have that pressure taken off of me. Now, granted, it's still going to be crazy busy, but at least there is someone to share that load with me. And it's someone that I've worked with before, and I know we get along, and I know she's great. And so I am approaching this season now not with a sense of complete and total dread, but more of a, okay, I can handle this. We can handle this together. I have a team now. But I just, I could have just kept my mouth shut and said, no, I can do it on my own. But I realized that was just stupid. It was stupid because it was obvious I couldn't do it on my own. And that's not a failing on my part. I can't control how many phone calls we get. I can't control how many requests for estimates come in. I can't control any of that. So it wasn't on me. I wasn't doing a bad job. I didn't fail. It was just too much for one person. So now I have a minion. And life is good. Yes, we have more overhead now, but we're going to have to increase the amount of business we get in. I don't think that's going to be a problem based on what happened last year. But, I try to just do what I can in my job to make sure everybody else can do their jobs. So that's my needs of the many. I'm the person that provides for the needs of the many, but at the same time, needs of the one, I need another one. And I got it.
I think the overreaching theme here is that to be able to provide for the needs of the many, we have to be providing for ourselves.
Yes.
And getting ourselves to a healthy position before we can do that. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the characters in Discovery, because they're all going through their own journeys of how to take care of themselves and get there. Especially that Ash Tyler. Like, he needs to get his stuff squared away so that he can actually be a good soldier. And who knows what's going to happen with him now. But I thought about this theme today and how it was present in the characters, and even someone like Stamets, who in the beginning it was him and his science. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the season, again, he's risking his life for the mission. And I feel like in some way there's a little bit of this theme in all of the characters. And I think in the long run, like, they all come together as individuals to create the family on the ship. Once you're in a good place individually, you can come together as that family. And then as Starfleet, in the Star Trek we've seen before, it's like we're supposed to already be there where we know how to do this self-care. And that's one of the reasons why Discovery resonates with me so much, is because, again, like, they're showing us how to get there. And I feel like I'm on that journey with them of learning what it takes to eventually get to that better place. But I love the fact that all of us have thought about this theme and come to the realization that we really have to take care of ourselves first in order to take care of everybody else.
Very true.
So, Brandi, tell me, what are your final thoughts of these themes? Do you feel that there's a common thread or anything that's, going throughout Discovery? Tell me.
Well, for the themes that we are talking about today, there's very obviously a common thread, because this story relates to that story, relates to that story, about all the different themes. And I think that they are universal themes, of course. And Star Trek is really, really good at taking our lives as they are right now, putting them in the future, and showing us those relatable things that just make us love Star Trek. They're so good at it. So good at it. I just love it. And it's there in every single series, but Discovery is, it's special. I mean, they're all special to me, but this is especially special because it is happening now at this time of my life when I know more about myself and what I'm capable of than I did in the past. And granted, in 10 years, I'm going to know even more. I know that. But at this point where I might be considered middle-aged, I have the experiences to appreciate all of the things that are happening now and all of the things that they are showing me through that Star Trek lens that reflect the world we live in and the world that it can be. And I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, it is so good. And, I love my TNG and I love episodic TV, but seeing this over, the storytelling arc of the entire season really allows the writers and allows us to pick up on these themes in almost every episode. And they're so small, but yet when you put it all together, these themes are screaming at you. Like just the ones that we've discussed. This is now our third episode. And you're right. These are universal themes. They could happen. They happen in humanity, any time period in the past, currently, and in the future. Like these are universal themes that everyone experiences. And I think if they choose to, can make a personal connection to. And that's what makes this specific iteration of Discovery so special, that it's not just one episode of fate versus self-determination, right?
Yes.
We see that in different characters, how that shows up in different characters and in different time periods, in different universes, the Mirror and Prime. Like we get to see all of these themes show up. And I just think it is so relatable. And it is. Discovery is especially special.
I couldn't think of a better way to say it.
No, it's true. And it's the background of our lives right now. And for me, and I've watched each of these episodes 3 or 4 times on their own. And then I've already watched the first half of the season. I rewatched before we came back to the break. And then now I'm trying to watch the whole season again. And I just continue to find quotes that apply to my life today, like either with what I'm going through specifically or just something that happened in a day or whatever. So it's, these quotes are applicable to me and resonate with me. And a lot of them are optimistic. So that's always a good thing. They become very powerful that way. But like, I just watched Lethe last night, and at the end of it, Michael Burnham is talking to Ash Tyler, and she's talking about her relationship with Sarek and how it will probably never be what she wanted or needed. And then she does that fabulous quote, which I have written down somewhere, but not in front of me, where she talks about how, she wants to cry, but she can't help but smile. And it's that it's really, again, a struggle of duality. And at the end of the day, it's optimism and love and hope. And that those lines, when I heard them the first time, really stood out to me. And they just stood out to me again. Like I'm going to have to compile a list of all these amazing, amazing Star Trek quotes that are there. But these themes are such a large part of Discovery and then a large part of my own life, and they all tie together and they just make this really incredible, powerful thing out of Star Trek. And Star Trek has always been personal. Like I'm a Trekkie because Star Trek is personal. And Discovery has been the penultimate, sorry, I'm getting emotional. The penultimate Star Trek that is personal for me, not just because it's been the background. I have found hope and optimism to get me through what I'm going through in life. I found a community of people there to support me in life. And I see myself in all of the characters. And I have gone from not seeing myself, from not identifying with Saru and thinking, how can you live in fear all the time, to living in fear all the time. And now understanding what that is, and then seeing that character turn around and, be a captain and take control. And so all of those things just culminate into a very inspiring, powerful experience. And it's a tough thing to say because I love DS9. Like DS9 has been my Star Trek for a long, long time. But regardless of even my own criticisms with how this first season panned out, Star Trek Discovery has truly become my Star Trek. Okay, I'm done. Or I'm going to cry.
I'm sorry to disappoint people that I didn't cry this time. It's probably for the best because I cried on the last 2 episodes of The Edge live. So there you go. If you want to hear more crying, just go back and listen to those.
There you go.
We love feeling feelings.
Feeling is all I do all day long. That's what I'm built for. Is feeling the things.
Well, ladies, it's been fun talking about themes of discovery, but it isn't the only thing we've been discussing here on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, The Ready Room.
I'd like to see a starship where the chief medical officer is a Tellarite and see his bedside manner.
I'll see your crappy Louis Zimmerman hologram
Right.
amalgamation and raise you a Tellarite doctor. Yeah,
The 602 Club.
This is such an incredible beachhead in terms of what they do with what we've come to expect now with like the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy or resurrecting Peter Cushing.
Warp 5.
We share about 50% of our DNA with a banana, so I think we're a bit closer to reptiles than 50%, but still.
So what you're saying is it's possible to have an intelligent banana.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that...
50% banana.
To the journey!
Bolians don't have a lot of hair.
That we know of. So, I mean, we've never seen a shirtless Bolian, have we?
Not that I can recall, unless it would be in sick bay or something like that, but I can't recall an incident of a shirtless Bolian.
How do you know that they're not hairy-chested?
I kind of love the idea that, like, from the neck down, they are covered in hair, but they're bald on top.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all of these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review because that helps people find the show. It really, honestly, truly does.
It does. And we want more people to enjoy The Edge.
Yes.
Well, if you're not an Apple user, don't worry, we got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, which I always think is the weirdest word, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab that little RSS link.
Now, we would love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are multiple ways that you can do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is, of course, the Babel Conference, which is our listeners group on Facebook. If you have not been there, what is wrong with you? Please go. It's wonderful. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up.
Well, if you'd like to send us a personal email, you can do that as well. Go to trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge, because that's what you're listening to. And that will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So Heather, where can people contact you on the interwebs?
On Twitter, I am LLA Posper, which is LLAPAWSPER. And then I admin the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Facebook group. So since we're so close to the convention, I encourage everyone to come join us because we're a great big family there. And we're excited to have new friends and see them very soon.
Yes. Brandi, where can listeners talk to you?
Oh, a multitude of places. You can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12. It's Brandi with an I, and 12 is a number. And I am also elsewhere on the network on Warp 5, which is the dedicated enterprise podcast with Brandon Shamatala and Patrick Devlin. We have a great time over there talking about enterprise. During the time where we actually have new episodes of Discovery, I will be doing Live from the Edge. That airs Monday nights, the day after a new episode of Discovery drops. And will be at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be some time before that's back. It's hard. And I also do a podcast with my husband called The Dark Corner Podcast, which you can find on strangeanddeadly.com, where we look at things from a darker perspective, which is basically how we view the world. You would think it's depressing, but it's not. We're not depressing. We just sometimes have dark thoughts. And also, you can find me in the Babel Conference. I'm always lurking around like a shark in there. But, I don't bite unless there's blood in the water. I'm kidding! I'm so kidding. I don't do that. But Amy, dearest Amy, how can people find you?
Well, you can find me here on the network. I host Earl Grey, and that's about Next Generation, my favorite. I do that with Richard Marquez and Justin Ozer. And you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. But my favorite place is on the Babel Conference. And I do a little sub show for the Edge called Postcards from the Edge. And I miss it too. Our last episode was last week. And so now
it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go.
Yeah. I've really developed a good relationship with the members on the Babel Conference, and reading their comments each week has been so much fun. So the Babel Conference is where it's at. We got great listeners there.
Absolutely. And speaking to you listeners, if you would like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron on the network of Patreon. So visit patreon.com/trekfm. That's patreon.com/trekfm to get all the details. Perks. Of course, there are perks. They include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, more stuff that you could possibly imagine. And it's all available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a lot of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. Regardless of what you may think, we do not get paid for this. We do it for the love of it. And we really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. And again, you'll find all of the details at patreon.com/trekfm.
Well, we'd like to take this time to celebrate and thank our associate producers. They are Norman Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, and Cornelia Reutner. Thank you so much for supporting Trek FM and The Edge. Well, it's been wonderful as usual, ladies. Thank you for joining me talking themes. We just might have to do it again because I'm feeling that there's more themes out there.
It's never ending. It's never ending. There's so many things to talk about. So it's been a joy and a pleasure, as per usual.
Yes.
I hope that somewhere out there, having feelings and talking about our feelings is letting other people know that it's okay to do the same thing.
Yes.
Yes. And we will hear and read your comments on Facebook. So we're looking forward to that. Well, listeners, join us next time on The Edge.